Hello and welcome. My name is Peace Mitchell and I'm co-founder of Women Changing the World Press. Before we begin today, I would like to pay my respects to the traditional owners and the elders of the land that I live and work on, the people of Mamu country in North Queensland. I'd also like to pay my respects to traditional owners and elders right across Australia and the Torres Strait. So I am so excited today to be launching our new book, Purpose and Passion. And I am honoured to have one of my fellow co-authors with me, Jorja Wallace. Please join me, Jorja.
Hi.
Hi, Jorja. It's wonderful to have you here. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. Jorja, for people who haven't met you before, I would love you to tell us a bit about you and the work that you do.
Okay, so I think I mostly just describe myself as a bit of like a chaotic creative. I am kind of in this point of my life where I am reinventing myself, I suppose, or rediscovering myself after getting a little bit lost. So I'm very new to the world of business. This is my third year. And prior to that, I was working in the Federal Public Service and had studied law and journalism. So a huge shift for me, particularly considering that the small business that I took on does donuts and edible treats. So like massive life pivot. And yeah, really, I'm just enjoying the ride at the moment. When I became a mum, it was like everything fell away. Everything that I thought that I needed to be and everything that I needed to do just kind of dissolved in the moment when I pulled them up to me, and they grabbed my finger with their little hand and looked at me. It was like the whole world stopped still, and I just was like, what am I doing? There's so many things that I want to stop doing and so many things I want to start doing. And so, yeah, that's kind of like where I am at the moment. I haven't really defined myself. I'm sort of in the void, and I'm in the whole period of change, which is really exciting and terrifying, but amazing.
Oh, I love that. I love that. There is so much potential and possibility in that time, but also it can be scary. So I completely understand. And your chapter, in fact, is called Embrace the Chaos. Can you tell us about why you chose that title in particular for your chapter?
I had so many ideas of what I wanted to write, and I think I had about 12 Word documents open with maybe like 200 words started of each, and I couldn't quite figure out which way I wanted to go. And sometimes I can get really stuck at the start where I've got to like come up with the right chapter or the right title or the right opening paragraph, and so I sort of couldn't go anywhere. And my little one came home from childcare and was like, hey, Mum, do you know Alicia Keys? And started singing this song, This Girl Is on Fire. And I was like, okay, yes, I do. And where did you hear that? They'd played it at childcare. And so then I was like, oh, I think I want to do something around like the concept of fire. Like I've recently dyed my hair like red, orange. Like I like the concept of like rising from the ashes. So I was trying to figure it out. But then when I started writing stuff down, I was like, oh, my life is so messy. Like everything about me is messy. And most of my life, people have sort of said to me like, you need to edit yourself, or you're too much, or you're too loud, or tone it down. And so I kind of just thought I'm going to go the opposite of that, which is kind of how I got Embrace the Chaos, which was I am chaos. Like that is my energy is chaos. And for some people it's too much, and for other people it makes them want to go off and do things. So I figured instead of fighting it, I'm just going to lean into it.
Oh, I love that so much. I absolutely love it. Now, in your chapter, you wrote about purpose and passion, but it was a little bit controversial. And here is a quote from your chapter. I have searched for a purpose because that was what I thought I was supposed to do, but I've never truly believed one existed. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, so I've always felt a bit like an alien, and like I didn't really belong. Like maybe I was on a different frequency to other people. I grew up in country Victoria, so very small town, very small school, and I just sort of felt like everybody knew what they wanted to do, and I could never figure it out. And particularly in year 11 and 12, there was just so much pressure, like you have to pick what you're going to do with your life and you have to study the right subjects and you have to do, and I just, like, I couldn't grasp onto anything that made me feel like, oh, I really want to do this. When people would say, what do you want to do? I was like, I don't know. When people would say, I want to be a doctor and I want to do this, and I couldn't understand how they could get to that point. And I kept trying to find it, but I couldn't. And things would happen in life that would make me question, like, what is the purpose of this? Even from a young age, when my uncle was diagnosed with brain cancer, my uncle David, the story goes that I, within a short amount of time, broke out with psoriasis. And that's kind of when everything sort of changed, in that I wasn't very aware of my body and my physical presence. I didn't particularly care, but then all of a sudden I was very aware of it because other people were. I was a child covered in a rash, and people looked, and even as an adult, people look. And I mean, it's human nature, but then I couldn't really understand, well, what is the purpose of that? And then when my uncle passed away, I was like, well, what is the purpose of this? And at the time, so I grew up like religious, and a lot of it came back to, like, it's all God's will. And I questioned everything. And I couldn't understand, well, why this would be. And then I just sort of thought maybe I was getting life wrong after year 12, when I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. And I went off and did things because I was, like, good at them, but they weren't really, like, lighting me up. And I was interested, but I couldn't really say, well, this is my purpose. And then stuff happened in uni. My friend passed away, and again I was like, well, there's nothing here. So I got a bit lost trying to sort of define myself on that. And then after I became a mum and I started again questioning everything, it sort of just led me to this, well, why do I feel the need to find a purpose and define myself by a purpose? Where has that come from? And I started questioning every voice, everything that I was telling myself inside, like, why? Who said this? Is this your voice? And where have you developed this from? And a lot of it had come from childhood. So I started pulling on the threads and untangling them. And I got to this point where I was like, well, I don't think I've ever believed I had a purpose. I really just wanted to live, and I just wanted to live as me. And somewhere along the line that got lost. So that's sort of why I went down the path. And then I thought, oh, well, I have to write about purpose and passion. So I did a lot of research, and then I ended up in this, like, philosophy realm, which I loved because I stumbled upon absurdism, which I was like, oh, this is my life. So yeah, that's kind of like how I got there.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you've explored that, a different perspective. And I think that is just so fascinating. And the other thing that I know will happen is that there'll be people who read this book who can relate to you, who also are questioning, what's the purpose? Do they have a purpose? And that it's okay to question that and to be different and to embrace that. So I love it. I do love it, Jorja.
Well, that was what I was afraid of, because I was like, oh, I think that I might be presenting an alternative opinion here, but I hope that I can reach people who maybe have felt like I did, and maybe reach people before they've gotten into their 30s. So if I can reach, people in their late teens, early 20s who are sitting in that space, and then realize that you can let go now, and it's okay to just go and pursue things that make you happy, and you don't have to look for a purpose, then you can save a lot of pain and feeling like you're a bit lost in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you touched on it before, but when you were at uni, your friend passed away, and unfortunately, as tragic as that was, the media then linked her death with an event that you'd been helping to organize.
Yeah.
And a quote from your chapter is, if I can point to a time in my life of extreme vulnerability, this would be it. Can you tell us about that time, Jorja?
Yeah, it was really abrupt and really jarring. So I was in my final semester at uni, I had been the publications director on the Student Association, and I'd been working really hard on pulling together the university yearbook. So it was something that was done by the Student Association at the time, and I'd really wanted to make it this thing that covered everyone, that was very inclusive, because it hadn't been in the past. So I'd poured myself into it. And part of that meant that some of the earlier events in the social calendar I'd said no to, because I was working on it and I was also juggling doing the magazine. And there was this night before the pub crawl where Bonnie had messaged me. She wanted me to go out with her. She's like, doesn't matter, just like leave it, no one will care, you can do it later on, like come and spend like time with me. And I'd said, like, I really have to do this, I've got an obligation, I have to do this. And then a few days, like less than a week later, she was gone, and that was sort of my last opportunity to spend time with her. And then because I was on the Student Association, I had been part of the group that had organised the pub crawl, and I'd actually suggested the theme. And I'd suggested themes before, and I hadn't really, I couldn't tell you which ones I had, but I held on to this one, I suppose, because of the media taking it and running with it. So it was 2012, and we'd gone into a meeting, and I'd said, oh, look, like, it's 2012, why don't we play off like end of the world? And the fact that the world's ending, and then it became around, well, we're going to do zombie apocalypse. And so we did that, and then I just happened to be split onto a different crawl to Bonnie, because it was split into two. And we're supposed to meet up at the end, and we got to the end and she wasn't there, and I asked where she was, and they'd said she'd gone home. And then the next day I was getting ready to go to a friend's birthday party with another friend, and I was getting these messages saying, like, have you heard from Bonnie? And I was like, oh no, I don't know what's going on. And then someone had said, oh, I got this random text message that said she's gone. And I was like, what do you mean she's gone? Like, has she run off? What's happened? And then they were like, no, like, she's gone. So I knew where she lived. So my friend and I, like, mid getting ready, I think I had just foundation on and no bra and some ridiculous dress, we ran to where she lived. And I knew it was bad when I arrived, because there were police cars, and went up. And yeah, she was still in her room. So I did get to say goodbye. Wasn't the goodbye I had planned, and it was very difficult. And because I was one of the older people of the group, I sort of, we were young adults, in the absence of parents, it sort of felt like it fell to me to tell other people what had happened, and to comfort others. So I really kind of put my grief to one side. And then, yeah, we sort of woke up to the media taking that and putting it all over the front page of the paper the day Bonnie's world ended, and I just felt like I'd been punched. And we tried to shut the media down as much as possible for incorrect reporting. I actually wrote a final paper on it, but it was virtually impossible, particularly with the internet. There were media trying to come onto the uni campus. There were people trying to reach out through social media. It felt really gross, and I felt abandoned by, like, I'd been studying journalism, and I had been leaning more to doing that because I liked writing, and I just felt completely destroyed by this industry that I had loved. And so then I was lost again. Like, what am I going to go and do? I didn't want to go into corporate law. I'd lost my friend. I felt like I couldn't be public in my grief, because it felt very much like a bit of a grief Olympics about, like, who knew her best. And I just got stuck in this spot where I was like, well, I'm not allowed to express my emotions. I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I've just wasted years studying something that I now hate. And so I just got lost, very, very lost. And because I was in this spot of being vulnerable, I just started doing really stupid things. Like, I was 22 and I was on my own. So I drank a lot, and I made poor decisions, and I put myself in risky situations. And it was almost like I just jumped into the pit of grief, and I just swam around in it for years. And I know it would have been really difficult for my friends and family to have seen me doing that. And I kept trying to do all the things that I thought I should be doing, like going and getting a grad job and going and working, but it was just delaying the inevitable of having to eventually express and feel that grief. And it's this time of year is really challenging for me because her anniversary is coming up this weekend. So I always feel very funny about being online because, again, it feels a bit like the grief Olympics, and our relationship was very private and my friendships are very private. So it's it kind of takes me back. It's definitely probably one of the bigger wounds that I have that I'm still working on. I find it difficult to talk about, but then I realize the more that I stay in the shadows on it, I'm not able to help other people if they go through the same thing, that it's okay to be messy. Like that time of my life was messy. Going back there is messy. Yeah.
Oh, Jorja, it's so heartbreaking to lose a friend at such a young age as well. You were away from family. You were interstate, weren't you, for uni?
Yeah, I was on, like, all my family's back in Country Vic, and my mum did come up for a period of time, but they were also small business owners at the time. They ran a fish and chip shop, and I have 3 younger siblings. So it was only for a short period of time, and then I kind of had to finish up the semester. A lot of my other friends deferred because it was too difficult, but I couldn't, like, I was barely scraping by on like $150 a fortnight to like afford food and stuff like that. So I couldn't just give up at the end. But it's definitely probably at that point where I just kind of completely lost myself. And I probably don't talk about her publicly enough because I find that period of time really painful and just very confusing.
Yeah. So sad. And then, sadly, you lost another friend, but this time you were able to tell her how much she meant to you. And you said in your chapter, she gave me the gift of perspective. And don't wait the right time. Don't wait for the right time to live freely, boldly, and courageously. The right time's right now.
Yeah. So I got a lot of time with Laura. So I came back from uni after losing Bonnie, and I think it would have been maybe it was less than a year later. She told me that she had brain cancer, and they didn't know how long that she had left. It could be 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, 30 years. It was just unknown. And I just watched her start to live really freely. And I had this beautiful moment with her at the start of 2021. It was like in amongst all the lockdown and the pandemic and everything, and we went to a music festival, and I'm not a festival person. I find crowds very overwhelming. But she really wanted to go because she loves John Butler Trio, so we went. And it was my first real chunk of time away from Fletcher. So that was really nice to just have one-on-one time being me again, and it took me back to being a kid. I'd known her since I was like 13, I think 12 or 13. So she was my oldest friend. And she was just so free, and I felt like we were kids again. And then she wanted to get up and dance to a song, but there was all these security like, no, you can't dance, COVID, stay away from people. And she was like, stuff all of that, I'm going up there, it's John Butler. And so I sat in my seat and I watched her dancing, and I just remember just like being so enamored with her. Like I just loved her so much, and I just wished that I could get up there with her. I was like, what? Like, you can break the rules, but I was like so stuck. I really wanted to go, but I wanted to do as I was told. And a few months later, it must have been about 6 months later, I got a message from a mutual friend that she'd actually taken a turn for the worst, and she was unable to talk, but I could send her a message, and her family were there and they could read it to her. And I sent her a message just saying about how she had literally saved my life. If it hadn't have been for her, I wouldn't have made it through high school. That was a fairly dark time for me, and she was the person that was there for me. So I was only around because of her, and here I was again feeling like she'd saved my life again because she'd reminded me to just go out and just live And so, yeah, she, in that moment, it was so bittersweet because I didn't want to lose her and I miss her so much. But it was like she just left Laura behind, like her essence. It was incredible. She just like, yeah. So every day I try to take a little bit of Laura, and when I'm feeling really lost and like maybe I'm holding myself back, there's a song that we really connected to at the music festival that I will play so that I can remind myself that she's there. And it's just so fitting because it's called Carry You. So like I was like, she's carried me so much. So yeah, she's a massive part.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, Jorja, and I love that you've honoured Laura through your chapter as well, and the gift that her life was to you and the inspiration she was.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for sharing your chapter in Purpose and Passion. It's just been so wonderful learning more about you and seeing your perspective and getting to know you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Grace.
Okay. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in today as well. You can grab your copy of Purpose and Passion and read Jorja's chapter and all of the other wonderful stories in this book as well at 𝑑𝒖𝒓𝒑𝒐𝒔𝒔𝒊𝒐𝒏. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jorja. Bye.
Bye.